We have fewer people here than the last time, but I sort of expected that.
People are still coming in.
People are still coming in,
Yeah.
but they can sort of come in as they come in. So hello everybody. Our friends from Innovative, Dean and Maria, are back again to tell us, how would we entitle this? Things we could use to improve our experience in Sierra, maybe, is decent.
Yeah.
So this is less a demo and sort of more an explanation of maybe some features we don't currently use that we don't know about, things to enhance our experience. So with that, I will yield the floor to you two.
Great. And I'll go ahead and get started. Kick us off here. Hopefully you're seeing my screen and some familiar buildings and territories there.
Yep.
Great. So again, I'm gonna start with another picture of something from our past. Hopefully everybody remembers this thing, the long cord that let you walk around the kitchen while you were talking to people and multitasking. And of course, when you got done with the call, you had to untangle the cord and do different things. And you know that certainly was a great foundation for the next iteration of it, right? The cordless phone. We all love these. I know I went out in the front yard and talked on it the first chance I got. And of course, these started with a tape answering machine, but eventually that became digital as well. You know, another great foundation for our modern state of smartphones out there. And I'm sure you're thinking that I bring up phones a lot, but I do feel as though phones really have transformed, and specifically the smartphone has transformed our lives in one way or another. And we never could have done that and been where we are today without a strong foundation. And the foundations from that phone that was hanging on our wall, right? And if we would have just focused on untangling the cord and dealing with the cord, we wouldn't have gotten where we are today. And so I do feel as though that foundation of the landline is a strong foundation that got us there. And similarly, that's a lot of what we're going to be talking about today is the foundation that you have in Sierra. For those of you that don't know me, I'm Dean Cooper, your account manager, and I look forward to spending some time with my colleagues today. We've got two of them on the line with us. We'll start with Maria and let her introduce herself.
Hello, everyone. If you don't remember from our last meeting, Maria Laude. I'm a librarian and senior sales engineer. I'm down in Tampa, Florida, and I look forward to having a discussion with you all today and asking you some questions about some of the questions you've posed to us. And I'll pass the microphone over to my esteemed colleague, Julie.
I'll turn my camera on just briefly. I'm having some internet issues, so I'll leave it off most of the time. I'm Julie Dorr. I'm actually the customer success manager for your site. I am, like Maria, I'm also a librarian. I've worked with Innovative for not quite 22 years now, most of that time as a training consultant, and I am now in the customer success realm. So I've taken a look at some of the questions that you've had that you submitted to Maria and Dean, and as Maria said, we're going to try to help to give you some good information about ways you can use your system as effectively as possible. Yeah.
Great, thank you. And as I kind of mentioned, you know, we're going to be talking about the foundation and the roots that Winding Rivers has with Sierra, and really, you know, we want to enable you all to not necessarily reinvent the wheel or create problems where none existed before. Rather, we're going to talk a lot about helping you resolve the existing issues and how you can build upon that to greater heights. And I'm going to use the building blocks analogy where, you know, a lot of times when libraries change ILSs or switch systems, they end up starting over, you know, but today we're going to examine what it could look like if we start necessarily at the bottom, but at the top to build upon what you have. I threw this this little saying, always remember your roots, as a kid growing up, this was on the wall in my kitchen, probably next to the phone with a long cord, of course. And so, as I was getting ready for today, I kind of brought my childhood back into this. And I do feel as though a lot of the lessons I learned as a child gave me my foundation and my roots to be able to evolve through my life. And equally, you all have been perfecting Sierra for years, and we want to help you make that as great as possible for staff and patrons as well. We often find the relaunch of Sierra to be a very effective and far less costly avenue than switching ILSs. So I do want to start by thanking everybody who submitted questions today. It really provided us with some great insight to shape our presentation and our conversation with you. I realize that while a lot of functionality gets added to Sierra every year, communication about it doesn't always get to the right people and go full circle there. And that's kind of your day-to-day challenges don't always make it to the innovative staff or consultants that have the expertise to advise on different methods of resolving that. So as I'm going to reintroduce our wheel here, I do feel as though you've got a very strong foundation and you've given us a lot of things to work with and build upon. And with that, the connect layer, as I was talking about at the beginning, is something we're going to roll out to all of our Sierra and Polaris libraries and include, and that's some of the notifications, your common circulation notices. Equally, that's some of the things like new patron registration and things along those lines. And so we're trying to help you build on that foundation and enhance that as well. And at the end of the day, whether it's a move to Vega Discover, or maybe it's just using Vega Connect with Encore and your existing systems, that's great. We just want you to hear the message that we want to work with you on whatever your desired path there is. As I mentioned, that could include some beautiful emails that are easy to build with a nice, easy to use editor providing notices. Maybe that's taking us up on a brand new option that's just being released, and that's a children's pack, giving some different capabilities there. Maybe that's building on the foundation of Sierra and adding a patron mobile app for your patrons to be able to do self-checkout and place holds and link cards with other family members and things like that. And I did mention earlier how Sierra has evolved a lot. I thought I'd just pause real quickly and just take a look at some of the promises we made at the beginning of last year and what we're able to deliver in Sierra. On the staff side, a lot of the workflow and usability improvements came out in the new releases, and you all are on 5.4, so you're able to take advantage of this. But some of the holds, manage holds, a large development project to revamp outstanding holds view and permit library staff to update the information to better manage that holds queue. Equally on the patron side, launching Vega Discover, and also for a lot of our academics wanting to use Summon as it has a stronger articles element to it. So we had a lot of libraries utilize that integration as well. And equally in the academic area, libraries using SAML, able to log into the OPAC or Encore using that SAML single sign-on. Enabling Sierra to harvest special collections using OAI, PMH, kind of Dublin core, if you will. On the resource sharing, not as many InReach folks in Wisconsin, but that was certainly a big part of it. And then equally on the staff side, mobile work lists got a lot of enhancements through their 2 releases last year and provided a lot of functionality there. So taking what's available and looking at your some of the questions that came in, I kind of in the beginning used the phrase as a relaunch, a Sierra relaunch, and certainly we would work with you to build a proposal, but some of the elements I'd like to include in that would be promoting a sort of relaunch, if you will, where we on your time frame, we do some workflow consultations where we can learn a lot more than just the questions submitted. And there's a lot of what you do is great, but some of that can be enhanced. Our consultants sit with different libraries every day and different consortia every day. And so they see a lot of what can be done. And to me, this is where a project could start. And like I said, some of those questions that were asked could be the foundation for that. Something that jumped out at us right away is current indexes. You have some indexes in there, but there could be more, and we could use them in different ways to help create more search options for you and simplify some of that. Similarly with scoping, there's a lot more we can do here. Maria is going to show you what some other consortia in your area have done with scopes and to help make that searching a little bit easier there. And again, I don't know if you all have heard of or are aware of Encore Suites, but that's, again, we'll show you a consortium in Minnesota that uses this for some customizations there as well. And I'm talking a lot about Encore here, and realize, there's over 1,000 libraries using Encore just in North America. It is a very solid product. There are parts you aren't using though, and we'll show some of those in some of those customizations as options for you and things that we can do. Oops. Jumped ahead. Or if you did like what you saw with Vega Discover last week, certainly we can put that on Sierra as well and build that out. And maybe it's enhancing Encore today and tomorrow or some point in the future, looking at your mission statement there: promote, plan for, and facilitate that development, right? I mean, as we mentioned last week, Vega is WCAG compliant, and we can certainly discuss that, but we don't need to rush it. We can do that on your time frame. Adding things like the Patron mobile app, again, we can do that at any point in time, and would certainly like to work that into a renewal if you all wanted that as well. And then, part of the reason Julie's on the call is this ongoing customer success. If we look at workflows today and do this sort of a relaunch, build in a future plan so that we're having regularly quarterly meetings. As you all are getting frustrated, you're facilitating those communications up to your central office, and that's being communicated with us on a regular basis. So we can tackle these one by one over time instead of trying to do everything at once, but create that environment where we're solving problems you have and not creating new problems by switching systems and tackling things that you've already solved. And so this isn't, a fully baked proposal at all, but it hopefully gives you insight into some of what we would like to do with you all, and if you choose to stay with Sierra.
And
with
Dean,
that,
there is a question that came in on the chat.
Oh, great. I can't see that.
From Jessica. Are these enhancements an extra cost, and therefore that is why we don't currently have them?
That's a great question, Jessica. Some are, some aren't. Some are just things that could be worked differently. Some are things that would have some cost measure to them, and probably why they weren't added originally or in the past. But I do think we're at a sort of crossroads now where if we do go down this path, maybe it's a lot more affordable to do it now. Combine that with a renewal and take a look at it and make it, so it doesn't break the bank, so to speak. But certainly what we're trying to provide here is probably the most affordable path for you. And hopefully that thanks for letting me know, Julie. And now I'll hand it over to Maria as she can bring up more of a live area, and we can starting with some of the questions pre-submitted. But we do want to kind of have this be a more interactive session today where we'll pose questions, show a certain workflow, and please feel free to take yourself off mute or on camera, and we can call on you and have more of a live interaction, because just showing you Sierra again isn't necessarily the point of this, but more different ways to use existing resources.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Thank you, Dean. And welcome back, everyone. I'm just looking at my notes and figuring out where I want to start. Well, as Dean said, we want to make this interactive. I'm going to jump into Sierra, but I thought a good jumping off point might be to look at some of the questions you asked, especially when it comes to searching. And Dean was just talking about searching Encore, searching Vega. We want to make sure you all are clear on what options are available for you, and reiterating that message of Sierra as the foundation. And then on top of that foundation can continue to be Encore, what you have now, making some adjustments or tweaks to Encore, or it could be taking advantage of Vega Discover. And in talking about the patron's experience and what their searching is like and what your searching is like, there were a number of questions that you asked why the searching is different between Encore and Sierra, and whether it will be different between Vega and Sierra. And the answer is yes. We are creating a different kind of experience for the patrons. We want the patrons to be able to use the library without needing to know how to do advanced searching. Patrons ought to be able to find what they're looking for simply by entering a search. And I'm sure, can all think of examples in our own communities, whether it's a family member or a friend or a patron you know who's had trouble using the catalog and just wants to do a search. And I think many of you, when we asked for your feedback last week when you saw Vega, you really liked those roll-ups. You told us that's a great way to be able to present to patrons formats together in one place, make it simple, make it easy. The kinds of things we're doing with Vega Discover and the kinds of technology, the Dean referred back to the landline and then working with the cordless phone and moving into smartphone technology. Once we get to that smartphone technology, to use Dean's analogy, there are only so many things that we can do back on the landline. So we can't suddenly add video calls on our landlines. And we won't do a poll and ask you how many of you still have landlines. I'm one of those. I still have one. So when we talk about what we can do in Encore versus what's possible in Vega Discover and where we're doing that development of all the new, cool, modern technology pieces, that's what we're doing with Vega Discover. And we can do that because Vega Discover has that platform based on BibFrame technology and responsive design and WCAG compliance. All of that is what we can do in the new technology of Vega. So having said all of that, some of your questions were about searching. So let's just jump right in. And I will share screen, Dean, and I think I might share a couple of different screens while we're here. And to get the ball rolling, I'm going to start with Sierra Web, perhaps. I know some of you had used Sierra Web in the past. Here's your opportunity to start giving us some feedback. If you've used it in the past and you aren't using it now, we'd love to hear why. I do have Sierra Web up, and you can see I've got Chance Donnelly up on screen. I also have SDA. So I tend to work in both for no particular reason, but sometimes I like to have different examples showing in my demos. I might show different permissions, or I might show different workflows. So I run both of them. For you all, we would hope that you like using Sierra Web and you can become mobile and get away from the desk and start using it. So Dean, I know you're going to be watching that chat window to see if anyone is giving us any feedback, but I am now here in Sierra Web. And I thought I might talk about one of the questions you had, and I'm so grateful that Julie's here because Julie knows the system far better than I do. But some things that you asked about with searching could be related to how your setup is at Winding Rivers versus our setup in our sales demos. And to start that off is that search button. So when we're in circulation and we're looking for patrons, my first question to you, actually my second question, since I just asked you about Sierra Web or we're waiting on your responses. Our second question to you is, you asked about searching by patron first name or date of birth. So that's my question to you. If I close out of Chance Donnelly and I'm looking up a patron, what are we saying that you all would want to be able to look somebody up by their birth date? Or are you perhaps saying you want to look somebody up and you just don't know which one they are? So maybe you're looking them up by name and you're seeing in the search results and you'd like to see a birthday. Whoever raised this question, if you're in the audience today or some of the others of you in the room, if you care to give us some feedback, why are you looking for birth date? What are you looking for here? Dean, any comments?
Nothing right away.
So far.
Okay.
Maybe
So
we can
we're
start by just showing the two-factor search.
Yep. And that's what I was talking about with Julie, that if you're looking up a patron, and let's just here I did John, and there are multiple Johns, then it might be helpful to add birth date here, right? So if that's something you're interested in having be available, Julie, are you able to talk about that? If that's something that can be added to this display?
Yeah, can you hover over the I on
Yeah.
First John there? Yeah. And so there is some information that you get here. Customization wise, some of it would definitely fall under the Idea Lab enhancement request kind of thing. But this is why Maria was asking, what were you trying to accomplish by either being able to search by birth date or see birth date? What was the purpose? And that's kind of where we're trying to figure out what would be the best thing. Would it be best to be able to see it there in the browse screen? You can see the patron type, and I believe on your system you have adults and juveniles and teens and whatnot. So you can see that, but was there some other purpose for the request to be able to search by birth date?
No, I think it's just an example of we have difficulty searching on partial information if we get a garbled phone message from a patron or something.
Gotcha.
I don't think it's birth date specifically. It's just
Okay.
any information. Some have requested to be able to search on first name, which I know we could do, but we would have to re-index, and there would be an added cost for that.
Correct.
So, yeah.
Perfect. So you've got a couple of options there then. And also, speaking of indexes, Julie, I know you can speak to this, and or Dean, if it becomes a pricing issue. You may notice that the list of indices I have here might be different from yours. So we've got one driver's license or phone number. And I think there's also one that we had, one of my other demo systems uses email address, but it also will pick up, I think, Julie, you were saying when you looked at Winding Rivers, that was the case for them, right?
Yes.
That they have
Yes.
email address or other fields.
Right. You have a combo index, what I call a combo index, that allows you to search for either email address, phone, and I forget what else. Sorry, I'm not looking at it right now. But yeah, it was address, phone, or email. Sorry. Get that right. I knew there were three things in there. So you can see Maria has one that's just email address, but you already have an existing index that allows you to search for address, phone, or email. So essentially the combination of three relatively unrelated bits of information. So you're not going to have a lot of crossover and mixing up of that data, since obviously emails are structured in a certain way. Phone numbers completely different. Yeah.
Right. Okay.
So that wouldn't require any additional cost. You already have that index.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
And if there were others, I think I was with a library at one point where they saw a field in my demo and they said, we don't have that.
Right.
So if you're looking in our sales environment and you're seeing something you don't have in your system, let Nate know. He can talk to Dean and see if it's just a matter of maybe it wasn't turned on, or maybe it's a matter of adding an index. And that's part of our discussion today too, and part of Julie's being here, that as we talk with you, having been a former trainer myself, I always recommend refresher training. Even, you've been customers for a long time now. It's always helpful to just hear from others how they do things, or to have workflow consulting and allow us to look at how you're using the system and offer suggestions. It's always helpful to get an outside perspective once in a while. Did something else come through, Dean? I thought I saw, all I can see on my
Yeah.
screen is just a 1 flashing, so I can't tell what it is.
No, it was more on the, somebody's at the circ desk and they want to place hold.
Yep, okay.
And so they end up going to Encore to search for the material, and then into Sierra to find the patron and do the hold, because the searching for the material in Sierra is challenging.
Okay, let's talk about some ideas. I know Julie has some, and I do too. So one of the things I was thinking of is there was a question on your list of issues, and I'm going to bring up, I think everybody knows shortcuts. You all know the Sierra probably a whole lot better than I do. My favorite shortcut is N for name, so I can just bring up Dean real quick, doing name, or I might do this one for N Cooper for preferred name. And oh, that's right, Dean, we've added some other people in here besides you. You're not the only Cooper anymore. But let's bring up Dean. And when we do, you all have pointed out that when the patron is in front of you and you're going to place holds, that the process here. So the process here, as we know, if we go into holds and add a new hold, and we want to search not just on one title, but maybe all of the titles of a particular author. So let's go with Tom Clancy. You all have commented that yes, we select Tom Clancy, we select against all enemies. It places either hold copy return soonest or that particular one. So we select it and then we enter in OK and we proceed forward, and boom, we're back in Dean's record. So yes, when we talk about workflows and ideas, even though Dean's standing in front of us, perhaps we could, instead of being in checkout and circulation, go to search holds instead. Yes, I know Dean's in front of you and now we're breaking out from his record, but if we begin here instead and we do that search on Tom Clancy, then it does keep you in that browse display. So not sure if this is extremely helpful for you, throwing out there as ideas. That's part of what we're doing this afternoon. So here now, if we select Airborne, a guided tour of an airborne task force, select that and place the hold. Then as we place that hold, we can use Dean's record, and then it keeps us back. You'll see the browse here. So after we select Dean, it puts us back in that browse display and we can move forward one at a time moving forward.
I think part of the issue here that members, and I might be putting words in their mouth, is the rigidity of the sort of the indexed search. Like if a patron comes up to them and has a title in mind, but the title's not quite right, if you do a search in Sierra on title, you're not gonna get anything close to, there's no prediction. So I think that's where it gets frustrating, and that's where I tell my members, go on Encore, try to find it there, and then come back to Sierra.
The other option is to use keyword searching in Sierra as opposed to the phrase searching. So yes, title is looking at character by character in the title fields, and so on. So the other option would be to use Sierra's keyword searching capability because sometimes the patron, has just enough information, but not the entire title. And so, yes, you're going to have mixed results using a phrase search as opposed to a keyword search.
And this, from my own experience when I was a librarian, I'm still a librarian, when I was a practicing librarian, I was really lucky. My position was split. My first professional position was reference and systems. So in the mornings, I was in the reference department on the reference desk. In the afternoons, I was in tech services. And for me, it was a fantastic experience to see both sides of the experience. What's it like for the patrons at the front desk and they're searching? What's it like for the staff needing to help the patrons, but also what's it like for the catalogers? And my famous example that I've always used was the reference librarians could never find Bartlett's because they called it Bartlett's. But everyone who knows reference resources knows that's not the title. And so the catalogers would get frustrated and say, well, that's not the title. And the reference librarians would say, well, why can't we just make it so? So over the course of the years, you're absolutely right. The staff experience, and as Julie said, maybe using keywords, trying to figure out what they're looking for. And what we've attempted to do at Innovative over the past 2 years since 2020 is really focus on that patron experience. Can patrons find what they're looking for? And that's where Vega comes in. If we typed in Midnight Library, did you mean? Having that kind of experience, exposing patrons to things they may not have otherwise realized, whether it's Midnight Library and the different formats, or whether it's 3 Past Midnight. Opening it up and giving them more than what they may have been aware they were looking for, and being able to pull in information from Syndetics Unbound to show them, hey, you might also like, or other titles in this series. So things that as catalogers we had to do manually, adding all these other fields to the record, now we can do so much more from the patron's perspective to give them a better search experience. I know, Dean or Julie, if you want to add to that. Okay.
So if you do a keyword search for Midnight Library.
Right, instead of here, so I'm doing title, which is going to put you in that title browse in Sierra. And instead, if we do keyword, we should have, well, now I'm going to bring in Julie.
No, it's not designed to in any way to correct for spelling errors like that. No, that Sierra just is not doing that. But if you have, for example, somebody who comes in and says, well, I know that the author's last name was Cleves and it had blue in the title, you can put in Cleves Blue and you're going to find that Anne Cleves book. That is Blue Lightning, part of that Anne Cleves series. So there's ways to use keyword when they know part of things, but not the rest of things. In terms of correcting for spelling errors and stuff, no, unfortunately not. But you could have just typed Cleves Blue right there in the keyword search box, or you can do the keyword limit. Yeah, either way.
Yep. And I wanted to bring this up because I don't know if you all are aware of this one. I don't use this very often myself, but Julie pointed it out to me, the keyword limit here, that if you're doing searches, especially if you're at the reference desk and you're always doing the same kinds of searches, that option to apply limit to all future searches is here. And so if we wanted to do Blue Cleves, but we wanted to apply a limit, such as maybe you're always looking for large print materials, or maybe you're also always looking for children's materials. If you have these locations and mediums set up, and that's where Julie comes in with workflow analysis and also customer success, that if you have these set up, then you can take advantage of those and apply those to all future searches. So if we set it, again, this is in our sales demo, so we've got all kinds of crazy locations in here. But if you have locations set up, then you'd be able to filter down ahead of your search. Yeah, Julie.
Well, and yeah, the ability to apply a limit to all the searches that you're doing if you're working with one particular patron who requires large type books, large print, and you limit to that, and take out the blue and the Cleves, obviously, but you apply a limit to all the searches. Then as you do searches for whatever they're looking for, each search that you do will automatically be limited. And you can see down at the bottom left corner of Maria's screen, it tells you that you're limited. So you have that limit applied in case you want to go and take it off. And so if you pick a location or a format or something like that, as I said, if you're helping a patron who needs that large print, you can pick that format. And I know you have that format on yours. Or somebody's only looking for books on CD or DVDs or whatever it might be in terms of formats. With that limit option and applying that limit to all your searches, you don't have to keep going back out and choosing either the facet or going back up and going to the limit box to select something different or select it again each time. You'll have it set for every search you do for that patron, and that can be helpful as well. But yeah, the keyword searching, I think, is kind of key here. I know part of your question was about the fact that it's a little more rigid in terms of spelling errors and that kind of thing, and that is true. And I think that would be something to to definitely head over to the Idea Lab to say, hey, this would be a great enhancement to Sierra to be able to account for that a little bit better. Yeah. But I think this gets overlooked, this ability to limit your searches. And there are some things that I can talk with you about outside this session that, that already exist on your system, a few little tweaks that can make that be really effective for your use in Sierra. Yeah.
And then one other thing about the searching and the holds, that there was a comment about placing holds on, say, all the titles of a particular author, that type of enhancement or new feature. I was talking with product management just earlier today that those are the kinds of features that we are building for Vega Discover, to be able to either do bulk holds from a patron's list, save list, or bulk holds from staff helping patrons. So that is planned for I can't say when it's coming, but that is planned development for Vega.
And Jessica, I saw your comment pop up, and I think that in relation to that, you said people are already using keyword, they're already trying some of the limits. And I think as I mentioned, there are some tweaks that we can make to how your setup is currently being used that will actually make some of that less frustrating for you. Yeah. So as I said, that's a subject for another time, not necessarily for this particular. We don't want to get into those details right now. We can set up a time to talk about that, though. What changes can we make to things like what's showing up as your location limiters? And you can let us know what is frustrating you about it. I've tried X limit, I've tried this, I've tried that, and I don't get what I want. So if the more examples you can give us of how that's frustrating for you, the more likely we'll be able to kind of look at how we can tweak your settings and make it less frustrating for you. Yeah.
Good point. Great, thank you. I was just looking at the list of questions, Julie. I was trying to group together all of the searching, circulation, and I think I did, but there's one maybe that I missed about scoping. Kind of ties in with how we were just talking about filters here on the left-hand side, or narrowing down. Shall we talk about how libraries use scopes? I'm going to clear my filter here so it's gone.
Yeah, and remember that the limits that are being applied are going to be different depending on which search index you have available. So Maria was in a keyword, and so when she hit the plus button to limit her search, the options she gets are different than if she goes out and does say an author search or a title search. So if she chooses author and hits that plus button, different. Okay, so slightly different options there. Where an item is located is often a very useful one, and that depends on a list of locations. There's a list of it's called the branches file, of all the location codes that are used in your orders, your items, your bibliographic records, and all of that. But there's certain ones of those that you've indicated the word true, and that means they show up as limiters for patrons, and they show up in this option here as well for you as staff. So we can look at how that's currently set up, what you currently are showing as true, and is it showing the things that you really need or not? Okay. The scopes, of course, can come in. Yeah, go ahead, Maria. Sorry.
So when we look at your Encore, when we see your collections over here on the left,
that's scopes. Collections and Encore are scopes, and your scopes that currently show up, at least from the top down, are location-based scopes. But if Maria scrolls all the way to the bottom, you have scopes. I think somebody even asked this question, if I remember correctly. Couldn't I just see all the teen materials or the children's collection? You do indeed have those scopes already set up. But there are some tweaks we can do in Encore to allow you to choose both a location-based scope or an adult teen location, or sorry, a location and a scope that's based on the type of material. So adult, teen, juvenile. So right now, you could select these, but the better way to do it is actually to have two different facets there. And you have the setup already to do it in the way I'm talking about. But you don't currently show the locations facet. And so that's another option that you do have, where you could take advantage of what I just mentioned about the locations that you indicate as true. And those tend to be the ones that are in bibliographic records. And what you have to remember is that the facets in Encore are pulling in, like a location facet is going to pull in results based on what's in your search results. So it's going to show you these are the locations that are available in your search results. These are the scope based on location-based scopes. These are the scopes that are available in your search results. Okay. So there are some other ways to configure Encore to allow you to do two different things without having to choose two different scopes, which isn't really, narrowing you down in quite the right way. So you can choose adult collection. If you further had the location facet, you could then say, I want to see adult collection based on scope, and then I want lacrosse, XYZ location or whatever it may be. Yeah.
So in talking about that, whether we're at lacrosse or Sparta, this kind of ties in, I think, well with whether or not we want to look at suites. And suites, a couple of different ways of implementing suites. One way is, I just did a search and I exited out, at Cumberland County. And I was trying to bring up the other one, Julie. I need to bring it up.
Now, and this one is not using suites. Cumberland County does not use suites, but what they have is the collection or scope facet and the location facet.
Right.
So here's where I can say, I want to see the board books or picture, and obviously their scopes are different than yours. You had adult and teen and children's collection, but they want to see, I want to see all the, board books or beginning readers at the Amelia Gibbon Library. So I can choose board books or picture books or whatever. It doesn't matter which pick. Anyway, I can apply that. And I can also then say, okay, now it's going to reconfigure my facets based on what it found. And it's going to show me locations at which that might be available. So you can choose.
Or I could have done both of them at the same time. Right. So I could have chosen Amelia and board books.
Right, exactly. Right. So now you've got Amelia Gibbon Library, and now you can choose the collection of board books. And so now you've narrowed it down. I saw the question pop up, have libraries figured out how to do fiction and nonfiction? Yes, and it all depends on how your scopes are defined, your locations are defined. So yes, there are some libraries that have done that. I'm sorry, I'm seeing other things pop up, but I didn't see the entire question. But yes, there are some libraries out there who have done that. But again, part of this depends on your setup. What Maria just showed you, you actually have the ability to do exactly what Cumberland County has done, because you have location-based scopes, and you have your adult, juvenile, and adult, teen, and children's material scopes. And we can enable that locations facet for you to let you do exactly what she just showed you at Cumberland County here in Pennsylvania. There, other things might that again at no cost. Okay, because I know that's definitely an issue. Does it cost money? In this case, you already have the setup for that. If you wanted an additional scope added for fiction versus nonfiction, something like that, then yeah, you'd be talking to Dean. But some of this is already existing in your system.
I'm going to pause for a moment and bring Dean back on, and I stopped the desktop sharing because I think this is a good spot to talk about the past and the future and some changes that we've implemented, and part of why Julie's with us. I'm going to turn it over to you, Dean, to talk about customer success and the comment in the chat. Let's talk about that.
Yeah, and Jessica, I kind of alluded to this a little bit at the bottom of my PowerPoint slide, talking about the customer success program. And we all get busy, and there's things that can get solved in a support ticket that are are quite easy. But then sometimes there's bigger picture things that need to be communicated broader, because they impact everybody, and one library might be in favor of it, but the other library might be against it. So some of these are things that are consortia specific, some are library specific, but what part of what we want to provide for Winding Rivers is that sort of a on our end, a team of, Julie, and then Angela Clough, your customer support manager, which is different than customer success. Closely aligned, but different. And then equally, if we know that there's some things that are going to be involved from our services team, we can bring them into these. But the idea is the core team of Angela, Julie, and I are meeting with your leadership on a regular. Typically, it's a quarterly basis, but we can do whatever we need to there. And so we're able to work on these. So if something can't be resolved in a support ticket, we're talking about it here, and able to do a little deeper dive, analyze the impacts on the entire consortia as opposed to just the one. And if everybody's having the same sorts of issues, great, let's get that resolved. And if it's something we can do workflow wise, better yet. But maybe it is something that we get somebody from our product team involved as well, and we get it worked into the next release. And that's certainly part of what we're doing with this customer success program. And as I alluded to, it is a newer program for us. It's not something we've done forever. And a big part of it is, over the years, right, we had a lot of libraries that went from Millennium to Sierra, and because they're so similar, maybe didn't do training, or maybe just to keep the same configuration as what we have, and let's not look at other elements. But over time, we need to take that big picture look at it and make sure we're able to deliver that. And so as we do, we have done a number of these sort of relaunches, if you will, for our Sierra accounts, and where we're taking some things that have been added in new releases and enabling them and making them part of the existing workflows. So that's part of our, as a company, commitment to our libraries, and even more so now than ever.
And the customer success team, one of the things that we do is, and I think, Dean, it was on one of your slides earlier, the system review. So in addition to those regular meetings, we can do what we call a system review. Some of the pieces of that I've already done in looking at the questions that you've sent. That's a big part of that, is hearing from you. What really bugs you, what frustrates you, what really you would like to see changed. And we take that information along with just some standard parts of the system that we look at, because as Dean said, over time things do change, and that configuration that you set up back in Millennium and just brought over to Sierra might not suit your needs anymore. And so looking to see, were there some new facet options in Encore that you could take advantage of that might, make your searching a little bit different, and not require, anything other than some minor tweaks to things, or some minor adjustments to records, some cleanup of records to make sure that things are working, some cleanup of tables. Those are the kinds of things we look at in the system review to kind of give you this opportunity to do what Dean's referring to, this kind of relaunch of Sierra, to make sure it's doing what you need it to do today. And then with the ongoing meetings with you and your leadership, then we can address issues as they come up. As Dean said, typically we try to meet like quarterly, but we can certainly do it on a different basis if you want to. Initially we do monthly and then switch over to quarterly later. But that way we can gather this information on a regular basis to make sure that these things don't go on and frustrate you for longer periods of time than they have to.
And then Julie, just one other follow-up question I saw in there on going back to the fiction versus nonfiction, was asking, where is that pulling from in the record?
It depends. The one that I'm thinking of, which is a library that's close to me here, it actually used to be my home library system. They actually build it into their format field in the bib record. And then either that or one of the other bib level codes. Anyway, but it was one of the bib codes they built it into, and they had us create a scope based on that. So they actually were using scoping for it. That's the Dauphin County Libraries. Also here in Pennsylvania. Sorry, I kind of go for my home libraries first. So, and that actually was my library when I lived in Hershey. So, but yeah, it depends where you have the data. And that's what's key here is, again, when you set the system up initially, there were certain outcomes that you expected or wanted in terms of searching, and that may have changed. So yes, there may be a need to create some new index points, to create some new scopes, that kind of thing. There may be some things that, that we are going to be talking to Dean about cost and so on. But what we try to do first is to see what can we do with what you already have and tweak that to make things more effective for you, make things easier, make things less frustrating for you. Yeah. And I'm willing to get that set up, anytime that you all are ready for it. I love doing this. I have to just interject that I did training for over 15 years, training and consulting with libraries. I was a customer for the Access Pennsylvania system with 80 libraries sharing the server. I was running that system. And so I've seen, and I worked at Drexel University, I've seen these issues. I was laughing when you were talking about, the customer only knows this or that about a title. I remember working course reserves where they'd come in and say, I need the blue math book. Well, I needed a little bit more than that. So I do understand, the kinds of things that you're running into. So for me, this opportunity to do customer success and be able to go in and look at systems and see what can we change, what can we tweak that's going to make this better for you. I was just thrilled to have that opportunity to move into this when it, as Dean said, it's a relatively new team. So, yeah.
Maria, you had mentioned suites. Do you want to, we'll switch gears a
Just
little
what
bit?
I was thinking.
Unless
Yeah.
there's
Yep.
other questions.
Kind of
Oh, yeah.
wrap together all of this searching stuff. And I want to talk about some other things in circulation, but yes, perfect. So the suites, I was trying to find the example and I found it, Traverse de Sioux. And what we have here is that they've got this option up in the top right corner, search other libraries. So they have it set in such a way that if we switch to New Ulm, that we will see their header up at the top and then be able to search in their library or switch back and forth.
And that is pre-scoped to New Ulm. So you're kind of pre-scoping, when you go into the suite.
I haven't dealt much with suites. Is there an added charge for using suites?
I believe as it was originally rolled out that is the case. Nate.
Yeah.
Okay.
And that,
Okay, good. And then a little bit off topic, but I thought I would bring it up since Julie introduced herself and what the team that she's on with customer success, that's new, relatively new to what we're doing at Innovative. And the comment from the chat was about, our response to issues in the past and changes that we were making to make those responses better for you all. I want to make sure we all are aware, whether it's you who are on the call today or your colleagues at the libraries, just please make sure you spread the word about our website that got revamped 2 years ago now and what we're doing to put information out to make it available to all of you so that you don't have to hunt down release notes or figure out where things are. We've really made a concerted effort to put everything on III.com, and you'll see in III.com there's a link up in the top right corner for support. This page will launch the Supportal page. Welcome to Supportal and everything else. This was revamped about 2 years ago and has links to all kinds of information like free training videos, webinars that are coming up. It also has some links that require a login. Those links are ones that have little padlocks next to them. So the release notes do have a padlock, which means you do need to have that login, but other ones don't. So if you want to see webinars that are coming up, even if you can't, Nate was talking about IUG this week, even if you can't attend the webinar, sign up anyway, because you'll get the link afterwards to the recording. And I don't know if your schedules are like some of ours. My boss is always telling me, you can watch the recording later. And I say, well, when am I supposed to do that? Sunday night at 10 o'clock? um, but everything is here for you. And also, speaking of what's new and what's coming, the roadmaps are now here. We brought that at about last year as well. And you can see for yourselves what we're working on, what's coming next. You can see with Sierra 5.5 is scheduled for Q3 this year. And what's new here is that each of these ideas, whether it's one that I might actually recognize as something that you would use, downloading multiple FTP files. There's a little icon, a silhouette off to the right with a number. That means the number of people who have commented. Any of you can comment. Any of your staff at your libraries can comment. You don't have to be Nate. You can be anyone at any of the libraries. So your opinion matters. You can come on to these ideas and indicate how important it is to you, whether it's just nice to have, important, or critical. All we ask is you just tell us why. How important is it? Why do you need it? You know, what change would it make for you? How would it help you? And your email address. That's it. You don't have to have a login in order to do that. Also on this page, up in the top right corner, is a link to submit an idea. There's this submit an idea, and then there's Idea Lab. So this submit idea is right on the roadmap page. Same thing. You can just enter in your idea and enter in your email address. The other site that I mentioned is Idea Lab. And Idea Lab, I'm just going back to see if I can get to it quickly. Idea Lab does require a login that you create yourself. Any of your folks at your libraries can come onto Idea Lab and create an account here. Both of these places get fed into our product roadmaps. And you can, if you don't have time to create an account on Idea Lab, just go onto that roadmap and put your idea in there. Either place feeds directly into product development and what we're doing for the product for the future. So if that's something you aren't aware of, please do make sure you take advantage of that and spread the word. Okay, switching gears, Dean. Any comments that have come through the chat on that?
No.
Okay. So switching gears just a little bit, I wanted to come back to circulation and talk about some other things that came up. And I also want to talk about cataloging. I don't remember seeing any questions about cataloging in the list. And I know that not all of you were doing cataloging. But Dean, I didn't get a chance to ask you beforehand, so I'm putting you on the spot. Mobile work lists?
So they don't have mobile work lists today,
Okay.
but it's certainly, something that we could look at.
Okay. So if we have time, I'd like to just show it for those of you who aren't familiar with it. So that occurred to me when we were talking about mobility and getting away from the desk. So coming back to circulation, I think there were just a few. We seem to have talked about a number of the questions that were on the list, but there are some workflows. Julie, there were some things about the pop-ups that appear on screen and whether or not there are certain things that might be able to be streamlined. I think one of them was having to do with renewals.
And the other was collecting fines. Yeah.
Yeah. Can we talk about that?
Yeah, and part of that's going to depend on, what features you have enabled. So again, the question or comment that I saw was it would be nice if we had fewer of these pop-ups. And again, if we could look at, specifically renewals. I mean, and this goes back to, what happens when an item in this case is overdue? Do you want to allow that renewal to happen and just add the fine to the patron record? Do you want to renew but waive the fine? Do you want to not renew? There's a circulation option that controls this particular thing. So in some cases, there may be an option or some setting that we can change for you that might remove a pop-up. Like, for example, the fine, when we were talking about collecting fines, there is an option that you have enabled as what type of payment, how are they paying? So if that's a factor that's really important to you, knowing, are they paying by credit card, are they paying by check, are they paying cash, whatever it might be, the payment type table is what it's called. then that pop-up is not going to be optional. You're going to have to select it each time. Again, is this something that's changed over time though? Maybe that was an important statistical factor for you at the time. Are you all still using it? If you aren't, that'd be something where we could get a pop-up. So again, this is something that as part of the system review, we could look at all of this. And again, the more details I can get from all of you as we're starting to look at this system review process is, okay, why do we have to get this pop-up? You know, I always choose, you know, don't renew, or I always choose renew and add fine. And do you all agree that that's what you're going to choose? Or do you have different ideas across the libraries of what should be selected here? So the more details I can get about that, the more I could really let you know, yes, we can remove this pop-up if you don't want this particular option or feature.
And I will just say also on the payment processing, it has to go to a network that's PCI compliant. We purposely have that outside of Sierra, because if your entire network, if the credit cards were processed inside Sierra, the entire network would have to be PCI compliant,
Right.
which gets reviewed on a regular basis. And it's a lot more labor intensive if that happens. So
Sure.
Purposely have that leaving Sierra and going to a different network that gets reviewed and is PCI compliant, and able to process credit cards. And it does add extra clicks and extra steps, but in the long run, we've all had our credit card numbers compromised at some point and had to get new cards. And so it just is a personal thing for me. I don't mind those extra clicks if it gets me to something that is meeting those PCI reviews on a regular basis.
Right. And you know you're protecting your patrons, and yeah, exactly.
Good. Okay. I don't think I've seen anything come through the chat window so far on that. So I'm going to move forward. I'm segueing a little bit into cataloging via create lists. I know there were some questions about reporting and simplifying the reporting. Now's your opportunity to enter into the chat window concerns, questions, comments, complaints about reporting. And so I want to mention, I'm sure you are aware already, within cataloging of create lists, but also the browse query. So some libraries tell us that they have create lists and they use it all the time and they love it. But other libraries say they want something that just runs more quickly. So for that, we often talk about under the tools option, and my computer seems to be hanging up a little bit here. The ability to run, oh, I'm sorry, it's not under create list. When you're in catalog, I know, Julie, I heard you.
Sorry.
When you're in cataloging and you go to tools, it's under browse query here. I think of browse query as create list light. If you want to be able to run a query, but you don't need to save it, or maybe you're just reusing a query that someone else has established. A good example might be you want to get a list of all those patrons who've just registered for library cards, those kinds of things. It lets you run the reports quickly and easily. You are on the most recent release of Sierra, so you've taken advantage of new features that have come in with both browse query and create lists, but I mentioned that. And oh, good, we did get a comment back. If create lists could export directly to Excel. Create list is exporting to a CSV, isn't it, Julie? It doesn't go directly to. That's
Doesn't
right.
currently have that, but there's a great place for you to go into Idea Lab or go into that page Maria showed you with the enhancements and say, hey, this is something that we really, really, really want to have, rather than having to take that extra step to open up our CSV file into Excel. Can we just have it go like other places, like in statistics and some other places where it just goes straight into,
Exactly. Yep. And that's a great segue also, because I wanted to talk about mobile work lists. One of my favorite topics lately is talking about mobile work lists. And if I'm successful, I'm going to bring it up on my phone here in just a second. I don't have my iPad today, so I am going to try it from my phone. In talking about not necessarily cataloging anymore, but cataloging is a good segue over because cataloging is where the heart of the library is. It begins in cataloging and goes out. I'm going to attempt, Dean, to share screen, but this is a new one for me since we just switched over to our new teams. And I don't know if this is going to work. So give me a moment. I should have an option somewhere to, and I'm not seeing it quite yet. All my thunder will be gone if I can't do it from here.
Just to
I hate to be
backtrack a little.
a broken record, but
Yeah.
mobile work lists are, they're an add-on as well, right? For a fee.
Correct.
Yes.
Okay, just making sure.
But they do have decision centers. We were talking about reporting. Sorry.
I was going to ask you about that one too. Okay, so you do have Decision Center. We can, Julie, are you able to, I'm putting you on the spot while I'm trying to find the share from Teams. Are you able to launch Decision Center at all? Otherwise, or I can do it.
I'd have to go find the links for it, but yeah, I probably can.
That's okay. I just don't see on Teams. I've joined the meeting, but usually there's an option to share, and I'm just not finding it. And I'm going to try one other thing. It's usually right under the more or under the three little dots. Oh, I know. I think I know what it is. Because I've joined Teams from my computer, I didn't join it from my phone. So I can do this. I can do this. It'll just take me 1 second and I'll bring it in this way. So you may see me coming in twice. And Dean, I'm going to have you talk for a minute while I do this.
Nothing like double vision, right? Part of, and while some of these things, you know, may have an extra fee, there's also some flexibility, as I said, in the way we approach it and looking at your current bundle and rebundling or doing something along those lines. So.
And
then
it's almost there. Yep.
Just another thing that when we do get to Decision Center, maybe we could touch on why sometimes the results of Decision Center and reports, you know, don't always align equally.
Ooh. I'm trying to multitask here. One thing I know there's a delay in when you get your Decision Center results. If somebody could be more specific and give us an example, because that with Decision Center, there's that overnight process. So the data is not going to be real time, but there may be another issue that I'm not aware of. So if there is something.
Yeah, I think you know, they're mostly concerned about some of their official reporting to the state, and I'm assuming that's circulation based, Nate, or is it other sorts of statistics?
I was typing, but it's probably easier just to tell you. I don't really have any concrete examples. It's just that if you run like a circulation report on Decision Center and then you run it on web management reports, it'll often give you two different numbers, which is really, we've told our members that the web management report is sort of the standard. That's what you should submit for official reporting. Whereas Decision Center is fine just for kind of on the fly data, but we don't put a whole lot of faith into it, I guess.
Yeah, and the web management reports is pulling directly from the CircTrans
Right.
file. I will freely admit that I am not an expert on Decision Center, but again, you know, if we have those two that you're looking at where you are seeing that discrepancy, Nate, you know, we can certainly have someone with more expertise take a look to be able to tell you this is why the discrepancy, or, oh, that shouldn't be. And then we can, you know, look into it a little further. Yeah.
Okay. I think I've submitted that in a ticket before, but it was probably just something that got, you know, that I lost track of or something, and I never really followed up. It wasn't urgent. So yeah, it's worth revisiting and all.
It's definitely worth it. Absolutely. And
Yeah.
as Dean said earlier in the discussion about, customer success, if it's not something that I can answer for you quickly, I'm going to reach out. I'm going to grab somebody from products, somebody from services, somebody from training to kind of come in and weigh in on whatever your issue is, which is something that in previous times, I know, Jessica, you said you were submitting things up to Nate and they didn't always get answered. And I think that's where the customer success team is trying to fill that gap and make sure that if it's not strictly a support issue, it has somewhere to live. It has somewhere to go and get looked at. Yeah.
Mhm. I was successful. Thank you for the pause, to the fill in, right? The vamping. I have shared my screen and you should be seeing it because I'm seeing it on my laptop too. A quick talk about mobile work lists, just because it has had so much improvements done to it over the past year, especially with the most recent release. Many libraries have in the past used Circa to do inventory, and we didn't have that in this mobile work list product, but now we do, as well as checkout. Mobile work list is a staff application, so it's not for the patrons to check out, but this is your staff app. And from the list that you see on screen, the kinds of things you can do or access your title paging lists. And I'm on a phone today. Usually I demo this from an iPad, a bigger device, but you can see that it displays just fine on the phone. And you can also do checking in of items, checking out of items, inventory, and count use. And the way that this also works when it ties in with cataloging is if you wanted to use it this way, I think of two workflows, either beginning in the stacks and maybe pulling materials that you want to place on a display shelf, or working the other way from Sierra. Maybe you've run a create list query of items that maybe are missing and you want to go out to the shelves to find them. That two-way workflow. Either way, mobile work lists allows you to eliminate printing off lists. So if I were to tap my lists on the app, it will bring up lists that me personally, I've put onto the device. And you can see that first one is Maria W. But many of these are tests or things that have come from Decision Center. Is now it becomes this whole workflow circle where materials that you have generated reports on in Decision Center can get accessed via mobile work lists and Sierra, so it becomes a full circle. But some here you can see I've got one that says display or holiday display. The way the app works is the staff would bring up the list, and if we're creating a display case and we're out in the stacks, then we would add materials to the list. And for this part, I am not prepared, but I will just talk you through what happens. That icon down at the bottom of the phone is a scanner. So if you are in the stacks and you're scanning something, this won't come up because this item's not in my Sierra database, I don't think. Yeah. But normally you would scan it and then it would get added to the list, such as what you see here with the kitchen garden. So it adds it to your list. You can swipe left and right, do things like check these items in, move them to a list, or you can now down at the bottom of the screen, push this list, getting eventually to that where I was headed with the exporting off. You can send this list back to Sierra with that first option, export to ILS, or email it to someone else on staff, either as a list or as a CSV file. Sending it off, and I did not configure this particular device for this, but sending it off to someone else via that CSV. So whether you're in the stacks and you're creating a list of materials for display or other things, or whether you're wanting to grab a list out of Sierra, now we can import a list from Sierra and put it onto the phone. So these are lists out of Sierra's create lists. Maybe there's a large print or missing items or items that need to be deleted, or that Decision Center list, which is 975, or anything else. Items that are currently checked out, anything I might want to grab. I'm going to bring in the ones that have a missing status and bring that onto the device. And now we've grabbed a list out of Sierra, we have it on our device, and we can go off to the shelves and see if we can find those materials. It loads that up. 109 items now are on my phone. and I can go off to the shelves, look to see if those materials are on the shelves. But if I find the Mystery of Haunted Houses, we can just swipe right and check it in. I think Nate brought up a question, but I didn't see it. So Dean, was there a question that came up?
Where does it go in Sierra when exported to ILS? Into a review file?
Yep.
And
Yep.
then, got it, yeah.
So I won't spend a lot of time on that, but this is one of those features of Sierra that, yes, it is an added feature, but it's something that libraries who use it say they use it constantly, especially now that we've brought in the features for being able to do checkouts right from here. And that's so new. I haven't even tried it myself yet. It just came out, but it looks like we just scan a patron barcode, or we ought to be able to type in. So I don't have my barcodes in front of me, but I ought to be able to type one in and see what happens. You're seeing this for the first time because I haven't tested it yet. I've been busy with IUG, but there she is. Yep. And then you just scan the item barcode. Oh, very cool. So you just scan it in and do your checkouts right from the device, check-ins, and then inventory as well. So if you are interested in hearing more about that, let Dean know, and we can certainly talk about that. Okay. Back to you, Dean. I think looking at that list of questions and giving everyone an opportunity to interject, have we worked our way through the list?
I'm just reading through it. So one thing I will comment earlier when you had that, you were in Sierra and you had that little drop down box that on the find, proceed without find. There's a way to group those together in Sierra. So maybe some of your groupings or items that are standalone could be grouped together. And again, that's something we can look at, you know, to help ease that process. I think we've covered. Is there anybody who's submitted a question who didn't get it answered? As I'm kind of, we bounced around a little bit here, but I think. Do we want to touch on reading history at all?
I can. I always like to show. I don't like to just talk.
Yep.
But while I'm trying to get my computer back in order, reading history, there was a question I think about exporting it off. That is something that is planned in development for Vega Discover. So look for that to be happening, and we can show you some of that. We showed you that last week when we looked at Polaris and showed the reading history where you could export off individual items, but being able to export the whole history is coming in very shortly in Vega Discover.
Oh, that's an interesting question about the same tech support team, whether you stayed with Sierra or moved to Polaris. And team, no. System, similar. So the supportal tickets are used by both Sierra and Polaris teams. However, the approaches are a little bit different. Sierra, we have regional teams, and Angela would be is the manager of everybody who would response to your level 1 tickets. And as things get escalated to the level 2 team and above in Sierra, it's a smaller group there that responds to them, but that's sort of how that's managed. Polaris uses a different approach. The people responding to tickets all are under one site manager. That site manager is with you from inception to end, and they manage the team that answer your questions. And that's a smaller team, if you will. And typically, if something needs to get escalated, it's not necessarily escalated to a tier 2 group, but to the site manager or the site manager's manager. Because we have fewer Polaris accounts, it allows us to, and that's the way Polaris did support when we acquired them. And so it started with that sort of different approach, and it works, so we don't change it. And it's a little bit different approach, but the ticketing system's the same, but the people who respond to the tickets are different. Equally, the documentation from the two teams is a little bit different as well. And if you ever want to see the Polaris documentation, it's in that supportal area that Maria showed you. You just go product documentation, and then there's information for Sierra, Polaris, Vega, all the different software packages we have. Any other questions coming up? Or
I don't see anything coming through the chat window.
Julie, any other observations from when you were looking at their system that feel maybe worthy of a commentary?
Julie may be having an issue. I see that she's muted.
I hate muted. Happens all the time. No, I looked through the list of questions while y'all were talking about that, and I don't see anything in particular. And I think a lot of this goes to, to my taking a deeper dive to do that system review, to really dig in and to request some more information from all of you so that we can, make the system work as effectively as we can for you.
And certainly, Whitehall and Shirley Wright both put in, some of those challenges that we want to dive into a little deeper.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I don't know. Are there any more questions? Well, thank you, Innovative Friends, for joining us. Do you folks have anything else?
Yeah, I can just do a quick little wrap up.
Sure.
Going to revisit some of what we talked about at the beginning, but the idea with staying on Sierra, Innovative, if that's the direction you want to go, we absolutely want to create a situation where we're getting pretty granular and working starting at a higher level to make Sierra work the way that you all need to, whether that's some of the things that we talked about, looking at loan rules as part of that workflow consultation, and really trying to optimize it to make everything work as well as possible. And as I mentioned, I've got a few ideas here, but with a couple quick meetings, we should be able to charge through and come up with a firm proposal of how we could do this. Obviously, if there's any financial impacts, what that would look like, and make sure that you're getting a system that you want and can work with. And then end by saying thank you for your patronage. Certainly appreciate having the opportunity to work with you on this.
All right. Well, thank you, folks. Dean, Julie, Maria, we appreciate your time today. And yeah, thank you very much.